Welcome back to the V1 Airline Retailing Report. I'm Eric Markets.
And I'm Steph now. Eric, we're doing something earlier than our regular Monday release, and it's a little different this week.
We are. No breaking news this episode. Or rather, the news is a breaking survey. Cederhall just published the State of Airline Retailing 2026 through LeapShift. It's a global survey of 213 stakeholders. Airlines, vendors, consultants, and Anne has been doing this long enough that you can compare 2026 results directly against 2023. For anyone who's new, quick orientation. The V1 Airline Retailing Report is a weekly show. Every Monday, Steph and I break down 2 or 3 narratives that matter in airline and travel distribution. Not the press release version. The real version, what it means, who benefits, what the risks are, and what the industry keeps missing. For today's report highlights and references, please see the episode details.
And Anne is one of the most credible voices doing this kind of work. She's not an airline apologist. She's not a vendor pitching a platform. She calls what she sees. Which is why some of these numbers are uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable is the right word. And what's useful about a survey like this is that the data doesn't just give you numbers. It surfaces narratives. 3 of them in this report that we think deserve a full conversation. The first narrative is about confidence, or the lack of it. What airlines actually believe about their own retailing capabilities and why that self-assessment has gotten worse, not better, since 2023. The second narrative is about the industry's own initiatives, NDC, One Order, modern airline retailing, and a sentiment shift in the data that should make everyone in distribution stop and pay attention. And the third narrative is the one Anne calls hidden opportunities. The segments, the moments, the revenue that's already there and almost completely untouched. That last one is where the report gets most actionable.
Let's start with the confidence data, because it sets the table for everything else.
So Anne asked airlines a simple question. How good a job is your airline doing at retailing? And the results are striking. 31% said poor, 10% said very poor. That's 41% of airline respondents rating themselves as doing a poor or very poor job at retailing. Only 8% said very good. Steph, what do you do with that?
The first thing you do is notice the direction of travel. Because in 2023 the industry was less self-critical. And you'd expect the opposite. 3 more years of investment, NDC maturity, more ancillary tooling on the market. More confident, not less.
And here's the other finding that sits right next to it. Airlines are less confident in their own capabilities than they are in their peers, which means they look across the industry and think others are doing better. But when you're inside your own walls, it's mostly chaos.
Which tracks with the free text comments Anne published. Several respondents used almost identical language. We do fine on our own website, but through third parties, we fall apart. And the internal politics comment. Someone just wrote no and too much internal politics. That's not a technology problem.
There's also the macroeconomic frame that Anne sets up at the top of the report. Industry net profit margin is 3.7%, according to International Air Transport Association's 2025 report. Global ancillary revenue is between $120 and $150 billion annually. McKinsey estimates a 10 to 30% ancillary uplift is available through personalization alone, without adding a single seat. So the stakes are not abstract.
And yet, 69.7% of respondents say they are not using an order management system, an OMS, that brings all purchases together. That number was 62% in 2023. It went in the wrong direction.
So revenue opportunity is real and quantified. Self-assessment is declining. OMS adoption is moving backward. And the number 1 item airlines ranked as most important to their retailing journey, the top of the list, was technology from vendors that can deliver. Not strategy, not people, vendor technology.
Which is an indictment of the vendor community as much as anything else. Say more about what that means.
It means airlines feel captive. One respondent put it cleanly. Airline is a captive to its tech partners. Until it assumes its own tech leadership and vendor-neutral transformation, it is doomed to low margins and leaky ROIs. That's not a fringe view. It was the most echoed sentiment in the open text feedback. Another said airlines want to retail but are still built to ticket, and that the legacy PSS vendors are the main blocker.
So the bear case here is that confidence is declining, tech dependency is deepening, and the window for catching up to consumer retail expectations is shrinking. The gap between what airlines believe they should be and what they actually deliver gets wider every year, while the rest of retail moves forward.
That's the bear case. The bull case is simpler but requires a different kind of leadership. One respondent said their airline is doing a genuinely good job within current legacy constraints, and that the opportunity now is to simplify, not invent entirely new products. Simplify what they have, retail it better, and stop trying to build everything in-house using PSS tooling that was never designed for retailing in the first place.
The critical take from this data isn't the numbers, it's the pattern. Airlines know what's wrong. They can describe the problem with precision. The gap is execution, not diagnosis.
The second narrative. Anne asked respondents to rate the industry initiatives, modern airline retailing, NDC, and One Order. And the results are genuinely surprising to me, because they move in opposite directions.
Lay out the numbers.
Negative sentiment toward modern airline retailing, is growing. Negative sentiment toward NDC is growing. Combined negative and needs improvement for NDC is now over 44%. That's a meaningful chunk of the distribution industry, looking at the flagship International Air Transport Association standard for airline retailing and saying it's not working well enough.
And on One Order?
Optimism about One Order has increased since 2023. That's the counterintuitive finding. The concept of moving from PNRs and tickets to a single order construct, people believe in that more than they did 3 years ago. Even as the specific mechanisms, NDC as a content standard, MAR as the broader framework, are facing more skepticism.
Which tells you something about where the frustration is located. It's not with the vision, it's with the plumbing.
Exactly. And Anne does something useful here. She draws a distinction that the industry has almost completely failed to communicate clearly. The difference between an order-based PSS, which people often call OOSD, and an OMS, which is an offer and order management system that sits on top of your existing PSS. These are different things. Airlines and even vendors frequently conflate them.
Walk through that distinction because I think a lot of people listening have heard both terms and are not clear on which is which.
An order-based PSS replaces your reservation system at the core. In that model, PNRs and RBDs disappear. Each seat is treated as a product. 180 seats means 180 products. Revenue management operates at the individual product level. It is a full infrastructure replacement. What people call OOSD, and OMS by contrast, sits on top of whatever PSS you already have. It manages PNRs, tickets, and EMDs in the background, but all customer-facing sales are organized into a single order. Multiple PNRs can exist within one order. The customer sees one record. The airline gets full visibility without hunting through split PNRs to understand what was sold.
And the OMS path does not require a full PSS migration.
That's the point Anne makes clearly. You have 3 options. Migrate to an order-based PSS if you truly need to and if the business case holds. Stay on your existing PSS and layer an OMS on top. Or do nothing. But doing nothing has a cost, and that cost is real even if it doesn't show up on a project budget.
And the confusion between those options is doing real damage. Because airlines that think they have to choose between full migration or do nothing often choose do nothing.
That's the critical take. The industry has generated so much terminology: OOSD, OMS, NDC, MAR, One Order, dynamic pricing, continuous pricing, and has done almost no work to help airlines understand what each means for their specific situation. And quotes Fatos Endemir at CETA, who puts it well. The real decision is not OMS versus order-based PSS. It is whether an airline can genuinely move from transaction management to retail management. Orders only create value if they remove friction, support real shopping baskets, enable flexible servicing, and accelerate time to market. Otherwise, they are just modernized PNRs with a higher price tag.
That's a useful test. Not, did we implement the standard, but did it change how we sell?
And there's one more number worth flagging from this section. Around 70% of airlines are still on NDC version 17.2. That version does not support servicing. The latest version is 24.1. Migrating between versions is expensive and slow. So the industry is debating whether NDC is becoming edifact with lipstick. Anne uses that phrase. While the vast majority of carriers haven't even implemented a version of NDC that handles the most basic post-booking transactions.
The gap between the debate and the reality of what's deployed is enormous. The third segment is the one I find most practically useful for anyone building retailing strategy right now. Anne identifies what she calls hidden opportunities, segments and moments that are significantly underdeveloped. And some of these are genuinely surprising given how long the industry has been focused on ancillary revenue.
Start with the one that most people will immediately recognize.
Group travel. Weddings, sports teams, school trips, conferences, music tours, extended families. Anne's point is that group travel is treated as an operational exception, a manual process usually handled outside the normal booking flow, not a retail opportunity. Yet the demand is obvious and the willingness to pay is high. A wedding party flying to a venue could be offered coordinated seating, shared ancillaries, flexible change policies, destination packages. Instead, most airlines route the group coordinator to a call center and process it manually.
And corporate direct purchasing follows the same pattern. Corporates say they want to buy directly from airlines. Direct purchase enables real corporate personalization, policy-aware offers, configurable bundles, content that goes beyond discounted fares. But adoption hasn't grown at the pace anyone projected. Airlines have been talking about retailing to corporates for a decade, and most of them still serve corporates the same way they did in 2015.
There's also disruption retailing, which is almost completely absent from airline strategy. Delays and cancellations are treated as operational problems to be managed. Anne's argument is that they're high-emotion, high-engagement moments where customers are actually more open to offers, if those offers are transparent and empathetic. A customer stranded for 3 hours might pay for lounge access, meal vouchers, or a hotel rebooking at a rate they'd never accept in a calm, pre-trip shopping flow.
And the upgrades finding deserves its own moment. Anne calls upgrades a broken opportunity. The technology to do dynamic, contextual upgrade offers already exists. Geofencing, real-time data, push notifications. You could deliver upgrade now using miles or cash. Or, you have 24,000 points. You need 25,000 for an upgrade. Buy 1,000 points for €12. If the seat is empty, that is pure incremental revenue. Edelweiss sells upgrades on board. Demand is there. The execution gap is about the will to build the trigger logic.
And then there's the MCP finding, which I think is the most interesting data point in the whole report.
Talk about it.
Anne asked airlines about MCP, Model Context Protocol, as a potential product or technology layer. 40% of respondents said they don't know what it is. Only 8.9% have it in production. 13% have it on a plan. And 33% said no, they're not pursuing it. For a technology that has been the dominant conversation at every airline and distribution conference for the past 6 months, that's a remarkable disconnect between what's being discussed and what's actually being built.
Which connects to the broader theme Anne closes the report with. The opportunity is no longer about inventing new ancillaries. It is about retailing existing ones better. Airlines launch good ideas and fail to make them dynamic. They don't trigger at the right moment. They don't personalize based on signals they already have. The product exists. The data exists. The technology is available and getting cheaper. What's missing is the retail discipline. Pricing precision, merchandising, offer design, timing logic, that any mature retailer would consider table stakes.
And one more finding worth naming. 57.9% of airlines can now sell ancillaries on partner airlines. That's up from 36% in 2023. That is a real improvement, and it's worth acknowledging. But it means 42% still can't. And the 3 most common partner types where this capability exists are some codeshare partners and interline, which means full alliance coverage is still rare.
The industry's own top 3 challenges, ranked identically by airlines and non-airlines in Anne's survey, are selling products on partner airlines, interaction between systems, and seamless integration with PSS. Same 3 problems the industry has been naming for years. Same 3 problems, still at the top.
That's the indictment. Not that the industry isn't working, it's that it keeps working on the same obstacles without moving them.
Anne closes with a line that deserves to stand on its own. The next wave of airline retail growth will not come from inventing entirely new products, but from rethinking overlooked moments, underserved segments, and underconnected partners. The opportunity lies in treating every journey, individual or group, leisure or corporate, smooth or disrupted, as a retail experience rather than a transaction.
Let's close it out. 3 findings from Anne Cederhall's State of Airline Retailing 2026 report. First, airline confidence in their own retailing capabilities has declined since 2023, even as the ancillary revenue opportunity has grown. Airlines know what's wrong. The gap is execution, not diagnosis, and vendor dependency is tightening rather than loosening.
Second, NDC and MYR are facing more skepticism than they were 3 years ago, while OneOrder is gaining cautious optimism. The industry's failure to clearly distinguish between an OMS and an order-based PSS is causing airlines to freeze instead of act. You do not have to replace your PSS to unlock order-based retailing. That confusion is costing real money.
And third, the biggest retailing opportunity in aviation right now is not a new product. It's group travel, corporate direct, disruption moments, upgrades, and post-purchase touchpoints. All of them largely untouched. All of them high willingness to pay. All of them sitting inside every airline's existing infrastructure. The problem isn't imagination, it's execution discipline.
Anne wrote this report knowing the industry is under pressure. Tariff uncertainty, economic headwinds. Retailing is not top of mind for a lot of carriers right now, which is exactly why this kind of clear-eyed assessment matters. When you resurface from a crisis, the airlines who use the time to sharpen their retail logic will look very different from the ones who waited.
If you found value in this episode, share it with someone making decisions in distribution, retailing, or travel technology. These conversations get better when more informed people are having them.
We'll be back next Monday. Until then, I'm Eric Markets.
I'm Steph Nell. Thanks for listening.
Stay sharp out there.